Right, it's 6:30 and I do not want to hold folks up. We'll get ourselves started. I'm sure there'll be a couple more people who are coming in. For those of you who have not met me, my name is Bruce Carlson and I am the chair of the Mariners Way Revitalization Committee. It's a committee that was established by the Board of Selectmen just a little less than a year ago. So we have been working for almost a year on some of the things that you'll be seeing tonight. And with me, Ellen Gochowski, Chris Rickson, Tracy Larson, all members of the committee. Casey Hands, who may be here soon, also a member of the committee. And we have two other people who won't be here. Doug McCracken, who is also on the Planning Commission. And then I consider her a member of the committee, although she's staff to the committee, is Jennifer Donahue, who is the staff person for economic development in the town. So that's the mighty crew that has been working on this, and we'll show you some of the results as the evening goes on. One of the things that I wanted to do is get started by talking about the elephant in the room that I hear every time I go out and talk to people about Mariners Way. And that is, town's been doing this. This must be the fifth study. Why is this any different than anything that's ever happened before? And the answer to that is yes, the town has done a number of studies. But this is the first time that the town has taken a group of people, frankly, a highly qualified group of people. We have a lawyer, architect, engineer, former town planner, a business person and property owner on Mariners Way that have all come together to look at this, bringing their own expertise to the table. So this is a good group that is working hard at trying to respond to what our charge is, which is really to look at the study, the Camoin study on economic for Mariners Way that came out in 2024 and has a set of recommendations, which I'll show you in just a minute. And with those recommendations, our job is to see which of those recommendations can and should be implemented and to implement them. The other reason why this is different is that there's actually resources associated with this effort. Back in 2017, that study, one of the recommendations from that study was the creation of a tax increment finance district. So Mariners Way, going from basically Mystic Market down to the Ragged Rock Marina, is all a tax increment finance district. I won't get into all the details about what that is. You all pay the same amount of taxes. Problem, what happens is when the taxes come to town, every incremental piece that goes to the town, 50% of that gets siphoned off, put into a fund that is available for this committee to be able to make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen on how, excuse me, on how to use it. So we have resources there. We also, an interesting twist of fate with the fine federal is the fact that when the legislature passed the law to allow for cannabis sales, they assumed that most of those cannabis sales were going to be in urban areas. And so part of the law says that every establishment that is selling cannabis, 3% of the gross revenue of that establishment is available to that town for 5 purposes. And one of those purposes is infrastructure, in the neighborhood. And so they are, we are using, that money to look at our streetscape, which I'll be talking about in a little bit, so that there are resources in play that is available to this committee to be able to make a difference. So that's the second reason why there's a big difference here. What we want to do tonight is we want to give you an update on what we've been doing over the last year. And kind of where we are taking a series of recommendations that the Camoin study made. We also very much want to get whatever feedback you want to give to us tonight, or at any other time. This, one of the major recommendations of the Camoin study, and I think frankly, every other study that has taken place is public outreach and trying to get feedback from the people who live there and work there and say, what, what is it that you want that we can help implement? So that's what we'll be looking for. If you did not get an email from us on Monday, what I would ask you to do is please leave your email, and for anybody who is online, if you did not get an email, please give us your email, because I think that may be the easiest way for us to be able to be in contact. I know we also sent out snail mail a while ago as well. So we're looking for your active participation. Interrupt me anytime you want if you have a question, but not only tonight. This is just starting tonight. This is the beginning of a process that I hope we will be talking with you on a regular basis. So with that, I'll move on. Hard to see, but let me focus you on the right-hand side. Left-hand side, the pretty picture is really, those are the 10 recommendations that came out of the Camoin study. And what they are, there's 6 of them that we do not have underway right now. There's things like the first one, which was the establishment of a redevelopment agency. The town is still considering that. That's one of our charges, is to make a recommendation to the town on whether that's a good idea. Another one is looking at a catalytic mixed use project. We need to go a lot farther into information that before we're ready to recommend something like that. But the 4 that we are working on are on the right-hand side. To formalize the involvement, that's starting tonight with business and property owners and residents. We'll go over the redesign of the streetscape that we're talking about, soils analysis, and also what we're doing in the way of looking at zoning going forward. On the soils analysis, one of the critical paths to any development or redevelopment is understanding, particularly in this town, because there are no sewers, understanding what can the soils manage. And there's a wide variety of soils along Mariners Way. There's been some work that was done on that by the Council of Governments, the River Cog. So we have some information about soils, but we don't have information on all of the properties, as I say, going from 154 down to the Ragged Rock Ravina. However, there is information publicly available. That information is either in town hall, or that could be with the regional health department. So about 6 months ago, a study was established by the town to take a look at the Main Street properties. I think predominantly right from the fire station all the way up to the train station. And do the same kind of quick analysis of looking at those, because their thought, the town's thought, is what could we do about potentially bringing in more housing on Main Street, 2nd or 3rd level on many of those single level buildings. So so that's already underway. And if you're interested in kind of what is going to be, the potential result of what we're talking about, you'll see that, that's there. We're just getting started. We haven't even engaged the engineer quite yet, but we have a scope that the engineer is going to be working against, and is looking at specifically what is the publicly available information, what is the soils look like, and will come back to us with a recommendation saying, we think that here are potentially developable properties above and beyond what those properties currently have. So that, so that will be helpful to us, and anything that we have is obviously public information. So if you as property owners or business owners want that information, the information is available to you as well. We're also looking at the idea of, do we really need to have a wastewater solution for each property on a property by property basis? Or could we conglomerate some properties and have a single solution for that conglomerate of properties? And part of the study that the engineers are going to be doing will help us understand better whether or not the soils can handle something along those lines, or where there are soils along Mariners Way that can do that. So that's where we are with the soils analysis. I'll stop for a second. Questions on that right now? You can ask questions at the end, so this isn't the only chance, but before I move on, just in case. Okay. We'll keep moving. Communication, as I said, that's very important to us, is the communication that we want to continue to have. I think that frankly, that's the most important piece to this work right now, is that we need, we're 6 people, we've got good ideas, but we need everybody's good ideas in order to be able to sort through and make some recommendations to the town as to what could possibly happen. So we'll be reaching out on a regular basis. There'll be certain milestones along the way that we'll have meetings like this, but we'll also need to figure out, I think, some kind of monthly communication that we could send out, your Mariners Way update, that we can get out to you, and that's why the email idea is an idea that I think is going to be really helpful. I have met with a number of property owners, major property owners. I had an opportunity to walk Mariners Way last Thursday. Saw some people there as part of that. And what I plan to do as we go forward is continue to be, knocking on doors, talking to people, but also anybody who wants to reach out to me and ask questions. I hope that you will do that. On the streetscape, this is one of those situations where we're actually utilizing work that was done before. We thought that the wheel that was invented by the Civic Moxie group in their 2017 study was actually quite good. For those of you who weren't involved, they came up with 4 or 5 different concepts of streetscape as part of their report. We looked at that and we said, those are good ideas. However, what we really want to do is we don't want to go back and gin up more good ideas. There's one there that we think really fits very well with what would work for Mariners Way. I'll show it to you in a second. And so that's the starting point that Jacobson Engineering firm is looking at right now, and looking at to determine whether or not does this idea fit. And this is the idea. So this is looking west. So the shared use path is on the south side, and what is not on here, but what we've asked Jacobson to take a look at, is actually to have a sidewalk on the north side, because as development takes place on the north side, then a sidewalk would be very handy to have. What you'll see is there's also that median in between the traffic and the shared use path. This would be coming from 154, and it would predominantly be like this all the way to at least where the highway entrance is, because that's the state road, and the state right of way is pretty significant. It is a minimum of 75 feet, and it's actually in many places along it's wider. So there is room to be able to put something like this there. However, once you get past the entrance to the highway, it becomes a town road, Ferry Road. And so with Ferry Road, it's less of a right of way. So what we have here, the top one is what's currently there. And the idea would be to continue having a separated, shared use, path, but it would be much smaller. The one on the previous slide, that one is, showing 12 feet, but it would, I think as we look at this and look at what we have to do for shoulders on the, main roadway, we'll probably need to, narrow that path more to 10 feet rather than, the 12 feet that it is. But anyway, so, imagine that if you're coming down that path, coming from 154, taking the turn past, Glade View, then this would be the kind of path that would be going then down, to the river. And what I'm in communication with the people who want to do the development of the North Yard. And talking to them about, when they do their development, we would love for them to be, pretty much bringing a path from where they're doing their work up to, where we would be meeting them at the, Ragged Rock Arena. So, Marina, so that would allow for, one unified pathway, effectively all the way from, 154, to the river. So that's the concept. We have talked with public safety. Public safety is, likes the concept. Particularly likes the idea of having this, shared use path separated from, the traffic. And so, we'll be going forward with this to determine from the engineers how this can fit. And if it can't fit, why not? And what are some of the fixes that we may need to do to make that happen?
Bruce, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So I've been watching the meetings all along, and I remember in one meeting you talked about that 75-foot state right of way.
Yeah.
That it varies in that strip, and some areas are much narrower than 75 feet.
Not that 75 feet is the minimum, and then it goes wider.
Okay,
So,
now there's a residence on that side of the street. So that sidewalk will go through the middle of that house.
well, that is exactly why we're having an engineering study. So the answer is, they need to come back to us and say, here is, trying to fit this concept. Here's where the problems are. What can we do in order to be able to fix those problems?
And then another question is, who's responsible for that strip of grass between the cars and the people? And who's responsible for that bike and pedestrian pathway? Is the state taking care of that because it's a state road, or does it fall to property owners?
Does not fall to property owners. It's either the state or the town. And that's a negotiation between the state and the town. And so when
Other places in town, you're responsible to shovel your sidewalk in front of your property, so this would not be?
for this, on the sidewalk on the north side.
Yep.
Yes, that would be considered that property owner's responsibility when that gets built. Like I say, that's not first thing coming out of the gate. That may be whenever there is any new work done on a property there, then sidewalk would go in, so it would go in kind of stages, as it were. On this side, this is gonna go in, and this is gonna be the responsibility of either the state or the town. We had a meeting with DOT, state DOT, and I would say it's possible the state will do it, but as I said, we met with the town and the town said that they would do it.
Okay.
Other questions?
No, that's it for now.
Anybody else?
The state won't take jurisdiction over that sidewalk. That'll have to be a town issue.
Okay. And if that's the case, we met with the town, the first selectman as well as the head of DPW, and they're fine with it. Okay, moving along. So this just shows, again, the top arrows shows where the, I don't know where can't see my cursor, shows where the kind of the greatest width, and then on the far right hand side, you can see that's where the 75 foot minimum right away is. All right, last thing I wanted to talk to you about tonight is zoning. So as you probably know, the majority of Mariners Way is zoned industrial. There is a small amount of what is considered B3, which allows for some residential. There is marine industrial that is predominantly the area down toward the Ragged Rock Arena. And then there is a little bit of what is known as B4, which is right along just on the south side of Mariners Way, where near Custom Marine used to be. I think hopefully you won't disagree with me that there's a bit of a hodgepodge of development along Mariners Way. And what we're looking for is to, as a committee, is kind of blending two ideas at the same time. One idea is to think of Mariners Way as a place. And so what is it that could be done in order to give it more of that place feel? And I'll talk about that in a second. And the other is thinking about it as a gateway. A gateway from 154 through down Route 1 and around to the river. Oh, I should have mentioned, let me go back because I'll forget. On this, going back to the gateway concept, the other thing that we asked the engineering firm to take a look at is the idea of some kind of small center island, maybe not directly at the corner of Route 1 and 154, maybe a little bit in from that in order to be able to not be in the way of any turning or anything along those lines. But just to allow for an individual who is coming on the Mariners Way to know that they're entering a place rather than it's just taking a right-hand turn there. To be designed, have no idea whether it will work, have no idea anything. This is just, we asked them to take a look at that as part of their study. And so, it could also be used as a pedestrian refuge because there'll be, crosswalk there going from the south side to the north side and having an island somewhere in the middle allows for more pedestrians. So anyway, idea of a place. Sorry?
Tractor trailer trucks can't make it around that corner as it is.
Exactly. I understand.
So are you talking about widening the road there?
As you know, widening is pretty hard because of the, you've got the cliffs on either side. So, no, I'm not talking about that yet. It is something though, the engineers are keenly aware of the fact that they are, we've got 18-wheelers that are, coming around both ways. And they need to be able to make sure that that still is possible. So I'm not an engineer. I can't tell you how it's gonna work. All I can tell you is that they're aware of it and they're gonna tell us how it's gonna work. Going back to zoning. So within the current zones, there are certain activities that are allowed. And there are a number of activities that are only allowed by special exception. And if what we want to do is facilitate revitalization, we don't, one of the things that the development community is very clear in talking to me about is they need certainty. And unfortunately, and I'll say something a little negative, and that is they find that with special exceptions in this town, it takes a long time to get something done. And so what we want to do as a committee is we want to go through this process. We want to identify what uses the town, you folks, town hall, what uses the town would like to have there that are not currently permitted in the current zoning, and bring up a zoning amendment that would allow for those uses to take place without them being special exceptions. So that as a developer, if you want to put in this is the process. You don't have to go through hours and nights of zoning commission meetings and planning commission meetings and all of that. So that's the concept that we're working with. Within that is also the idea that, we would be putting in, design criteria, going back to the idea of place that I was mentioning before. We would love to have, some sense of unification along Mariners Way. Not, not stipulating precisely every building has to look like this, but here is, some criteria that if every building began to look like that as any development was taking place, people would know, okay, I am someplace, I know where what I need to do. So we've just started this. We've just started this in the last couple of months. We know this is gonna take time. This takes time, every place that it's happened. It's going to take a lot of meeting with the zoning commission in order to allow this to happen. One of the models that we're thinking about is Saybrook Point. Saybrook Point has its own zone. And within that zone, there are 3 different subzones where certain different things are allowed in those subzones. Like I said, it's an open book at this point as to how this is gonna work and where. But what we're looking for is, first of all, can we come to some level of agreement about the kind of uses we want to see there? Can we come to some level of agreement about the kind of design standards that we want to see there? And then we'll write the zoning amendment in order to be able to accommodate that. So if we're not starting with what the amendment is, we're starting with what do we want? And then we'll let the amendment figure that out. Questions on that?
Sure.
Could any of the money set aside be used for better signage, better welcome to Saybrook sign, a Marina District sign? I mean, a nice oval sign, like a bottomless looking sign and have
Yes.
it be, and there's that, like Westbrook's our next one and.
Yeah.
And something like that and spend a lot of money on it.
I don't think we need to spend a lot of money on it. I think that, we can actually have a sign like that and be able to, that's what I'm thinking a little bit about. If we had some kind of center island, we could have a sign like that, but even if the center island doesn't work, we are gonna have some kind of welcome to Mariners Way sign, so people will see it. So that'll be good.
Would that also include maybe a new sign getting off Springbrook, getting off the highway, that's
Sure.
our welcome to Saybrook sign is. A little more,
Small, more, yeah.
Absolutely, I mean, these are exactly what we want to hear would be good and helpful in order for us to be able to do. And the answer is, that's what those resources are available for. Particularly the tax income and finance fund is for precisely something along those lines. There are other questions? Yeah.
I was rewatching some videos today from past meetings and I watched the one when Christine Costa was here talking to you guys about all the different zoning and all the things that are in there. And she said that the town would be very reluctant to give up any industrial zoned areas. Because once you lose them, they're gone. So when you go to do your rezoning or redistricting, you need to be very cautious not to eliminate any industrial businesses.
Right, so. Casey is my expert on this, so she can throw a pencil at me when I'm wrong. The thought that we have is, we're not gonna mess with what I would call the underlying zone. What's there is there. What we may be doing is something that allows for other activity above and beyond that. So we're not gonna zone out industrial. But we also, it would still be allowed. We would love to see, some light industrial that is tied to, maybe some of the work that's being done down at the river. So that there is, some possibilities of maintaining industrial activity. We don't know, but, we're, I guess a key point is, anything we do along zoning is not going to change what is, anything that any current property owner has. They don't need to make a change based on what the zoning amendment is. This is really looking for, hopefully, facilitating some other revitalization above and beyond that. Okay. Oh, JT Dunn has raised his hand, right? Can we get him? JT, I think you are allowed to talk.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. So I appreciate what you just said, that the idea of zoning changes should not affect people who are already utilizing their properties for whatever business or residential that they're using it now. My only, I have some thoughts on that, and because I've listened, as you know, I've listened to every single one of your meetings, and at three or four of them already, the talk, and you've mentioned it today, about a conglomerated wastewater treatment. And I've heard multiple times about the need for maybe a hotel or apartment complexes at either end of the Route 1 or somewhere in the middle, wherever people put it. And the idea of maybe putting a wastewater treatment plant on Alan Hall's property, B&L's property, came up a bunch of times. Also, that property across the Mystic Market. My major concern, and this has to do with people who are already there, every single person there has a septic system that works. They've already paid for it. They're already using it. They're not building an apartment building. They're not building a hotel. If the town or this redevelopment organization decides to put in a centralized water treatment plant, when those things occur in other towns, does everyone in that stretch of road get stuck having to tie to it and pay for it? Or does the whole town of Old Saybrook pay for that? Or just the hotel or the apartment buildings? Like, I don't know how those things happen in other towns. That's one question I had. The other is, in the previous meeting, and you mentioned it again tonight, about designing buildings to give it a sense of place. And you just said that people there wouldn't have to change anything. But yet, if I decide to make a major addition to the building I'm in or put a Butler building up, I may have to completely lower the amount of parking spaces I have, because there's this belief that Old Saybrook should have urban planning for fewer parking, more walking than suburban and rural planning that we all use every day throughout the whole town. And I think while the goal is to not have people who are already there have to change anything, you need to, if you're going to do zoning changes that will in fact make changes, like I have to have a building that has a stone face, I can only go so many things, I can only have parking in the rear, and I got to bring a tractor trailer truck in. You need to have disclaimers for people who are already there, maybe putting a new building up, maybe revitalizing their current stuff, so that they don't have to now comply with this urban design in Old Saybrook in a property that they've been on for 30 years. I look in the room, there's maybe 10 people. I got at least, 100 businesses and residences on that stretch. There's not a lot of people there. And I'm just concerned that not a lot of people are going to voice the same concerns over wanting to have the same goal you have of not changing everybody's rules that are already there, but you have to write it that way.
Yep, yep. And as I mentioned, JT, we will be in a position where this is an ongoing conversation. So this isn't a one-shot deal. And as this goes forward, those kinds of points are the kinds of points that need to be made so that we can make sure that whatever we come out with is something that is usable, frankly, by everybody, whether you're a current property owner or business owner there, or whether you're a developer who wants to come in and do something. So it's, it can go, it could. It's the kind of discussion that we need to have as this gets developed. Remind me, what was your first point?
The first point was the centralized wastewater treatment. It's come up 3 or 4 times in your meetings. Specific properties have been mentioned as maybe good opportunities to put that in. And that's all well and good. If somebody's putting in an apartment complex, let them put it in. But if our septic system is fine, we've invested money in it, and you look at Old Lyme now, and there's people whose septic systems are perfectly fine, and they're going to pay out the nose for years tying into East Lyme system and New London system because their neighbor has to. I don't want the same problem for all 100 addresses on Mariners Way that some hotels coming in, now we all have to pay for a sewer we don't need. Or a
Right.
centralized water system we don't need.
Right, well, that would be, I mean, the idea would be just exactly what you said. The developer, if something like that were to happen, then whoever it was who was developing the property would be responsible for making that happen. And that there wouldn't be, it's not the town that's going to do it, it would be the developer's responsibility. And so then that is where the cash would come from. And so if a developer came in, for instance, and consolidated 2 or 3 different pieces of property in order to allow for, you know, a larger development, then that one wastewater system could handle that. But that's all the responsibility of that developer, not the town.
Okay.
And so therefore not your taxes, I guess,
Uh,
is, or assessment as the,
Well, and it's not like we're talking about putting in a community wastewater system that everybody suddenly has to tie into. Like, I think that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when a property gets, or a group of properties get developed moving forward, it would be an option.
okay. So, yep. Renee, I think you're all set. Ready to talk? Can we unmute her?
I asked to unmute her,
Oh.
so she has to unmute herself.
All right. Renee, when you can unmute yourself, just speak up and we will take it from there. Otherwise, I'll continue to move forward. So what comes next? That's really the, you know, what are we here? Where do we go from here? We, as a committee, meet on the second and fourth Thursday of every month, 6:30 to 8 or so, right in this room. We have a public comment period at the beginning of every meeting. And we hope we continue to get public comment. Those are also on Zoom, so you can feel free to come in on Zoom. As JT mentioned, he's been visiting almost all of our meetings. So that something that is very possible. We are you know, going to be continuing to pursue these topics that I talked about tonight. As I mentioned earlier, there will be milestones along the way. We will want to figure out how to communicate where we are as we achieve those milestones, next steps, those types of things. We want to make sure that you folks know what we're about so that we can keep you informed.
Bruce, it's Renee. Can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Okay,
Great to
sorry,
hear you.
I not go to technology. I just have a couple of points, and I've been doing this from the very beginning when all of this started because I do have a commercial property in this area. You were just talking when JT was talking about where the wastewater thing could possibly be. At one point, the state was talking about putting almost like a clover and having on and off ramps there, eliminating the on ramp past Eric's Towing. Does anybody know of anything that could possibly affect anything there? Or can somebody look into that?
Yeah, can I answer that question right away?
Sure.
So we did meet with DOT, we asked them specifically if they had any plans, and their answer is no.
Okay. And then this is kind of the elephant in the room that I think everybody is probably asking. I just don't understand the end game here. Like keep hearing like they want to have marine industry along there. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what in the end, is this going to be more just to have some nice streetscapes to get up to the Baldwin Bridge? I'm not really sure I'm understanding this. And I mean, we've been through, I'm sure the people in the room too, you know, they did try to change our zoning at one point and that didn't happen. I think there's a lot of us that are just concerned and I kind of want to know what the end game is because we have had quite a few incarnations of this and never really got an answer.
Right. So one of the things that, you know, there are different ways to do this. One way, and I think is not the way in which I would recommend that we do it, is to come up with a bunch of fancy pictures and say, This is what Mariners Way is gonna look like in, 2030. Because who knows? And so, I think doing this in a step-by-step fashion, saying there could be development opportunities along Mariners Way. There are certain needs that the town has. I'm not gonna be, I'm not gonna surprise anybody by saying the town needs more housing. If a housing developer is interested in doing something along Mariners Way and the zoning amendment allows for that housing to take place, then there may well be housing along Mariners Way that's currently not there. So I guess Renee, my best answer to that is, we're not walking in here with a vision that
Okay.
says this Mariners Way is gonna look like. What we're saying is, we think there's an opportunity to do more with the properties that are there, and we'd like to facilitate that. And that's really what our role is.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Okay, thanks.
Question.
Yeah.
You just said there's more that can be done with the properties that are there. So currently, I'm not aware, and I don't know if anybody here that's property owner is aware of any property on that street that is currently available for development.
Well. There
There's
is
one thing that's for sale, it's the car wash.
car wash for sale. The property all the way down, I remember that name of it. It's kind of the last building on the left, that's, is it an attorney?
The Broder Building,
No, beyond Broder, all the way down,
where Casual Curtain used to be.
just before the highway entrance there. On the left-hand side's one.
There's a
story
real
with the-
estate, Angus Real
Yeah,
Estate's in there right now.
Right, that apparently is on the market, that is on the market. So I think as there are properties that will be coming on the market. And so that's, there's a couple right there, who knows what else is gonna happen.
Right, I mean, the bridge is gonna be another 8 years probably, realistically.
Yeah.
So it's a long time down the road that you're gonna see any kind of potential movement in there.
Well, on those properties, but then that in and of itself, I mean, that's, that's how 17 acres total that you've got between you and Steve back there. I mean, I think that, that could be a centerpiece for something.
In 10 years.
Well, right, but, this is not a flick of the switch experience. This is really setting the table, getting things organized, and then kind of letting the development take place. We're not gonna dictate development. We're just gonna facilitate the opportunity.
So this is basically a decade-long plan that we're talking about.
It could be. Yeah. And, our job, what we could use our public monies for are things like infrastructure. Or we could do something along the lines of facade improvement programs for building owners, once we have design standards in place. And we want to be, building owners that want to be able to meet those design standards. We might be using the TIF funds, we could be helping them. So there's. Science, right. So, yeah, so it's not like it's gonna take 10 years for anything to happen. But it will be 10 years before everything happens, I guarantee.
I got a couple questions. There were rumors that, the state wanted to put a rotary in at the end of Saybrook Road. Is that true or false?
Let
That was brought up here, not.
Yeah.
It's not by the state.
Let me not put that on the state at all. Let me just say that's we were in here, public safety, Department of Public Works, Town Hall. I mean, we were kind of spitballing with the engineers who were doing the streetscape and saying, what other ideas might there be? That idea came up. It's gotten more legs, frankly, than it probably should at this point, because we have no idea whether it's even gonna fit. And we also have some great experience nearby of rotaries that don't work. And so what we wanna do is, before anybody jumps off that bridge, we wanna make sure that if there's something there, we'll talk about it. But right now, there's, it's clearly not the state that's coming up with that. In fact, I have no idea what the states, I didn't talk to the state about it. So I don't know what their impression would be.
My
So-
next question is, so you're talking about doing a mixed use. There's a towing company down there, there's a construction company down there. Both of those companies, one could be towing trucks at 1 o'clock in the morning. The other one could be hauling fill out at night jobs. You start doing mixed use, what happens when people start complaining about this? Tell them, too bad, or is that gonna affect those property owners?
Well, to some extent, isn't that really the role of the developer? If a developer is gonna put in housing, not gonna be smart enough not to put in housing next to something that's gonna be, operating at 1 o'clock in the morning. And, that's my sense of it. So that's,
They do, and
okay,
then it's up to the people to complain to the town. And next thing you know, you're getting complaints because there are trucks, running at night.
and I'll accept that as you're making me aware of it, but it's not, this is not the kind of thing that the town is gonna take on, that I think it's really, this is what the development community needs to be thinking about.
But the town and your committee should take it on when you're thinking about zoning and allowing for those kinds of things, allowing for residential stuff in that area with, where it's already industrial zoned. Maybe it's not a good idea to make a residential piece in there.
Right, and so that's one of the things, if you remember I mentioned about the Saybrook point zone, where they've got 3 different subzones. Where housing, it can happen in one, but can't happen in another, so there's ways in which, through the zoning amendment, we'd be able to handle something along those lines.
Yeah, one of the unique things about that road is just the main way in Old Saybrook, the main gateway in Old Saybrook, because of the short bridge on Elm Street, and no one wants to come to the west side of town, through Spencer Plains to get in town, because it's congested, it was nonstop road repairs down there. That's the main way to town, so it's always gonna be a very busy road, and, we get trucks in every day. JT gets tractor trailer trucks, 53 footers, that have to swing wide to get into the driveway. And so the rotary would just make a whole lot of, it wouldn't make any sense. Like, how about, I just don't, I know you already know this, but Ocean Performance, you've got 55, 6-foot boats, that's a 75-foot trailer with another 25 or 30-foot tread, and air towing, obviously. So making the swings would be tough.
So like I said,
Would be almost.
it's gotten more legs than it should.
Yeah, so.
Sometimes you throw an idea out there and, it turns out it's not a good idea. That's okay. But, this is the kind of feedback we need to make sure that.
There was one more mention of a divided highway, or taking the road and putting a divider in the middle of it, like Main Street has. Was that
That was,
idea?
that was a concept from the 2017 study, which we have.
Yeah, it would make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, particularly, and frankly, it was JT who pointed that out at one of our first meetings, basically, because of the big trucks and trying to get through there. Other questions people have? Anybody online?
I would love to just make a note, I would love to see more, I know you're gonna be, with mixed use, it's always hodgepodge, like you say, but the industry in town is what really pays a lot of taxes, and we lost a lot of big stuff over the years, Donnelly and Kramer's and Fortune Plastics and Pathway Lighting, and but even small industry like us, we pay a lot of taxes. And having businesses that are marine or marine related, or even just a fabrication shops or computer shops, or they have usually good employees and pay a lot.
Yeah,
And the goal is to keep funding the town with taxes and and property tax and business taxes. That's a good way to do it.
right. It's a, I think that there's a lot of work in different places right now where, that kind of light industrial concept, maybe warehousing concept, residential, actually all lives together very, very nicely. And, through building design and so we could use that to inform what's possible here. And maybe even invite some of the developers that are working in those places, say, come take a look and just let us know what's there. So I agree with you. I could spend all night, and you don't want me to, dreaming about a couple of ideas that I have about how we could be, do some research and development that allows then for, a growth of something along those lines. But that's very possible as well, so we're at that stage where, anything is possible. That's a good stage and a bad stage, being a planner. One of the things that, I live by is if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And so, we don't wanna be in that place. We wanna be ultimately get an idea of where we wanna get to and then, set the sail to make that happen. Any other questions folks have?
Are you, as a committee, going to be, if and when, are you going to be reaching out to developers to say, hey, come look at Mariners Way, let's see what properties you might want to develop? Is that on the table? Is that something that you're gonna be doing?
That's not currently on the table. What I'm interested in is some of the work that, as I just mentioned, that developers are doing. To be able to come and say, what needs to be in place in order for something to happen? Not saying, hey, take a look at, 180, 360 and, 420 over here and, what can happen there? That's not the idea. I don't think it's our responsibility to kind of put the developer in that position. What I think we should be doing is understanding, can this happen? If it can happen, is there something that we can do in order to help facilitate that? That is up to the developer. Okay? Nobody online?
No.
I'll go back to the beginning. We do want to hear from you. We do want to have a dialogue. I personally want to make that happen. So that if you did not get an email, I have a clipboard and a piece of paper. Love to have you leave your email with me before you leave to make sure we have you on the list. And then if anybody online, if you did not get an email, please send your email into Jennifer Donahue at Town Hall. And so we make sure that we have it. And with that, I'll thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Okay.